suppose the nice thing about getting Ranjit to do the difficult section is that I look like an angel after him. So, yeah, it was deliberate on my side, so we can deflect all the blame on him, and I can take all the credit for making your day a little bit better, I hope. But having said that, data analysis, any working with data, even your first experience with SPSS, those of you remember, it was awkward, it was horrible, you didn't like it, you wanted to go home. So it's the same thing, it's a bit like my wife, I also wanted to go home, but we got married, and so these things happen. So do the hard yards, and we'll be there to guide you along the line as those things happen. So another interest of mine is data, just looking at data. And I kept talking to you people informally about feeling data and understanding data and the nuances of data, rather than the formalistic words that you would learn. I mean, I got a master's student in statistics sitting there, but visualizing data is what people talk about now. And when you get to know your data well, things start happening with your data. You can start making your data talk for you. It is very unfortunate right now that we live in a world of PDF. Your thesis is a document, so it's not a living document. It's a static document that you produce to somebody, and that document is marked. In my own experience over the last year, I've been contracted by Pearson's to develop what they call an iBook, an interactive book. So we wrote a book called Digital Literacy Citizenship for, I know it's DLP, I forget what it stands for. Can you imagine the author of a book not knowing the title of the book? But that's how these things work. So, I mean, I didn't care about the title, I cared about the content, right? And I was one of 4 authors, and we worked on how do you engage with kids to learn social media and to learn concepts about computers, but without actually going through the drama of having to read too much. And we also wanted to make the book completely South African, so all the examples had to be from South African sources with South African examples. So this whole thing about iBooks and versus ebooks, and ebook is obviously an online version as opposed to a PDF. The whole thing of an iBook is an interactive book. Now, how can we take iBooks to interactive data? Or how can you visualize your data? How can you make your data speak for you so that people will understand it? Because as you were overwhelmed by the presentation that Ranjit has done now in order to make your data do something for you, when you do your presentation, wherever you go, somebody is going to look at you and say, what is this person talking about? You're the only person in the room that understands your data. How do you make the data speak for you, and even when you're not there, speak for you? So I'm going to try to do that. That's the first thing I'm going to do, right? The second thing I'm going to do is just for a few minutes, I'm going to talk to you about Google. Yeah, Google. I know you know everything. And if you like it, then tomorrow we'll do a bit more. If you don't like it, we don't do it, right? So it's going to be like that. All right, so I think this is the mantra that we talk about now. Tell me and I may forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I will learn. And I think that if you involve people with the interactive nature of your data, there will be some kind of way where you can communicate and get some knowledge going across. Now the big word, you remember you talk about dashboard? I'm sure you would have seen software, they talk about an Excel course that you do when you learn about dashboarding. You heard that word? I mean, you would have heard it because of your accounting background, and the eco people would have heard that word as well. Now the new buzz phrase, and you will see this word appearing more and more, is a word called cognitive data. Right? And I like it actually. I'm really suffering from acronym fatigue as an IT person, and I'm sure you guys are as well. But this word I like. I really think that we are now getting to the stage where data is becoming much more cognitive. So let's just see how we can, do we have, okay. All right, so this is what I spoke about in terms of that your data must speak for you. You will, at some point, have a book that's proofread by an editor that's given to your external examiner, and then you're going to sit and wait and try and hope that you pass. But until you get to that point there, you're going to be doing something called a paper, something called a presentation, something you may even speak to the faculty review committee, you may have to defend your thesis, and all of that. And at that stage, this is when your visualization becomes important. So I'm now going to just show you some examples of data visualization. And if you don't mind, would you mind looking at that? And just think about what this does to your data, if anything. Forget about how it does it. Just think about what this does to your data. Now we are developing some tools to do this type of things here right now. This is a tiny little image that you can find on Google. And if you are going to search for this, you type your search word, fertility, male fertility as an example, or anatomy as an example. No, that's a horrible example. How do you animate a dead person? I don't know. Never mind. Freudian slip. Sorry, the worst example I could choose. Or the stillest example, the least active example. Never mind. You got me there. So, can you see what that data is saying to you? Does it make sense to you? Is that beginning to make sense to you? Or is it just a picture, a moving picture for you? Does it ring any bells for your own data? Anybody? Yeah, right? So I mean, the thing is, now once you start understanding your data in a particular way, you can see that the baby boomers, they've been quite busy, haven't they? You know, and they're ever-especially busy. What can you do? You can only do each other then. So there's a high birth rate, and if you look on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, you are separating it by male and female, and then you're doing some predictive analysis in terms of going future. So the economists and the accountants and the demographic people will really like this kind of graph. And of course, if you look at it from the bottom up, you can see these are historic data. So it's historic data from about 2015, 2016, and then of course you're getting into predictive data. And these are the types of things that I hope that you can now start thinking about in terms of that. It doesn't do anything from an analytical point of view, right? But what it does do is from a visual point of view. It's appealing, it's satisfying, it makes your work appeal to a larger audience. I think that's where I'm going to. Because you know, when you sit at dinner with your family and you want to talk about your work, you really don't know what to say sometimes, you know. But if you could have something like this, hopefully it will say something better. This is another example of one that really moved my cheese. The economist, I put this one for you, and you can see why, right? It really does it in a different way. And of course, if you go to the website, and if you use that data on the website, you will be able to now reclassify the data by country, by travel area, and stuff like that. And if you could just look at one of them and track them from your own image and see the data resonates with you and your work. I particularly had some problems with this one, and I was looking at the red dots, because I was looking at Australia, and I thought Australia is a first world economy, and I wasn't really convinced that the amount of income that they show is correct. But then if you rationalize it and you combine that with East Asia, it may be there's a limiting effect from East Asia mitigating the higher income and the smaller population of Australia. But can you see that, you know, this kind of data says so much more, and you have this data. I mean, the economists will have this data. It's a matter of having the data for what? 20 years, 30 years, or 100 years in this case, or 200 years. Most of the data is obviously implied or imputed, and you plot this data. I mean, Victor was sitting just now and is doing a very nice graph for you in real time that he found some information, and he's going to plot a graph. And now I'm not going to steal his thunder, but he's going to show you something. My point was that it's the thing that he was going to show you had something like this. We could see causation, you know, how certain things start impacting on it, and you can do the same graph in different ways and examine different variables. Okay. Now again, please, you will have to do the hard yards in terms of either doing it through SPSS or SAS or R or Python or JavaScript, whatever you're going to do. But again, if you know your data and you know the nuances of your data, you can sit with a software person and explain what you want. I mean, if you can visualize what the impact or what the purpose of this particular graph was, and how does it resonate to your own data. Right? And you are going to get the slide, so you can spend a lot of time looking at it. And we'll be happy to talk to you, you know, about it as well. But more than that, talk to everybody. Every single person you can talk to. They will come up with some other crazy, ridiculous ideas that will make your data speak for you. This one is my favorite. I really like this one. Right? And you know, if you can watch the median, look at the longevity in population age groups, and it's by male and female, comparing the two most populous countries in the world. Yeah, we're not going to live very long, are we? But anyway, you know, it really is a revealing, nice. It's a nice teaching tool. It's a nice demonstration tool. It's a nice visual tool, and it really will make your data talk for you if you can persuade it to become animated like this. we're living in a world of aggregation of data, and we're living in a world of visualization of data. And this is an interesting one that I urge you to look at in your own time. You can look at it just now if you want, but it's fine. When you look at your data, always look at TED Talks. Always do a search for TED Talks with your topic. There'll be somebody somewhere giving a really, really phenomenal talk on TED Talks, on anything, you know, on your hobby, on topic. And TED Talks is really, really. How many of you have watched TED Talks? How many of you haven't? Please, please, please. If you don't, that's it. You haven't, then you with me. Okay. So it's a life-changing one. I don't watch television myself, but I do watch TED Talks. All right. And I'll buy you a burger if you don't like it. All right. So let's do some work now. Let's have some fun. All right. So it was Mother's Day the weekend. That wasn't so bad. The wife made nice food for me, so I enjoyed it. So now, guys, those of you that have your computer, please go onto your system and type trends.google.com. If you don't have one, just pair up with somebody next to you. Okay, and there's a test at the end of this, so you better do it, otherwise, you know. So what we are doing is we are invoking a feature of Google called Trends. And Trends is a way of looking at live data or not so live data, but certainly some online data and archive data, data since 2004, where you could look at words relative, the word that you are searching relative to other words in that particular time, or that particular year, or that particular month, or that particular week. So when you type Mother's Day, have you got something? Oh, you got it.
Got it.
Have you got it? Okay, so I think the internet is very, very fancy here, so it should be okay, or most of you guys should be there. Excellent, right? So what are you seeing there, folks? I mean, you guys are all playing with data. What are you actually seeing here? You're seeing spikes. And then what do those spikes tell you? I mean, is there any logic associated with the spike? It's just from a common sense point of view, or from a deductive point of view, since that you are scientists. What will those spikes tell you? Or if anything? Yeah, kind of, right? So if you look at the date line on that particular one, you see that more or less the spikes are uniform, right? If you look at it across the different years. And those spikes happily coincide with the day called Mother's Day, which is quite logical, right? So it makes sense that the world on Mother's Day will be talking about Mother's Day. And that this weekend, those of you that know this, that there was a very famous piece. Trends. You got the other one, that's right. Trends.google. So people have to tell them. Now, for the hell of it, you can say search another term and just type Father's Day next to it. Okay, and add another term. Okay, before you do that, sorry, can you scroll down the Mother's Day tab, scroll down the window, you see a whole lot of things there. You see by area, by region. Yeah. Did you see that? Yeah. Right, so, okay. So, and you can see the picture of the world being colored. There you go, like that. Right, so scroll back up and see if you can add another term. Scroll back up. Oh, you didn't get it. Try Mother's Day first. I think the word is compare, hey? Yeah. And what those of you that have managed to get Father's Day then, what are you seeing there now?
Dads are less important.
So what's it telling you now? Are the two, the peaks that you're looking at, are they coincident? Are the peaks that you see for Father's Day coincident with the peaks that you see for Mother's Day? The slight shift, right? So the curve for Father's Day is shifted, if I remember correctly, to the right. Yeah, okay. Why is that?
Mother's Day occurs after Mother's Day.
Exactly, right? So in a calendar year, Father's Day occurs after Mother's Day, and if the logic that she had used earlier on says that people talk about Father's Day on Father's Day. Actually, no one talks about Father's Day in my house, not even to me. Abuse child, what can I say, right? And what else can you tell me about the relative sizes of the peaks of Mother's Day and Father's Day? Can you see that? Notionally, the size of the Mother's peak is far, far higher than the size of the Father's Day peak. Right, so you can see now this is online discrimination. Right, so fathers, let's get together on the side here. Let's get our placards ready and let's start doing something about Father's Day for this year. But I think it makes sense, right? I mean, genetically, houses, family units tend to go a bit crazy about Mother's Day. And Father's Day, well, we don't, it is as it is, right? And of course, remember, Mother's Day normally goes the whole hog, grandmothers and everybody, in-laws, outlaws, all of those things. But it involves the entire female community, and of course the females themselves like it as well. So and it's huge from a marketing point of view. So us men, we don't bother buying anything, right? So that's my personal view anyway. Right, so now, what was the impact of Mother's Day and Father's Day in South Africa? Would you be able to maybe go there and change worldwide to South Africa? Look guys, there's a whole lot of categories in there, right? So start looking at it, start talking to the person next to you, start looking at, like it says, past 5 years. Can you look at it for the past year? Can you look at it for a particular period? And just call us when you want something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Compare this. Yeah. Also, I think you take it up. The girls will be the other way around. Red on blue, yours will be blue and red. Okay. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
That's it. Yeah, because
It's after the event.
exactly. So
Yeah, it's after the event.
this month Mother's Day will prevail.
So
Next
maybe
month,
I should make it after the past.
she looked at for a year. You can't look at
But
it.
that's for 12 months.
Yeah.
That's past 12 months.
Where's this in South Africa?
Yeah, so, yeah.
That's probably why, because maybe there's not so much of
Maybe
engagement.
because remember Mother's Day is different across the world. And a different date.
Actually, more or less uniform.
No.
Well, this past one was. The term of the day for Sunday was Mother's Day. That's it. I was looking for live data for today to see so the term. Now, folks, so we just used a trivial example with Mother's Day and Father's Day, right? I want you to do me another favor now. If you could, let's try something. Let's try Coke and Pepsi. Right? And while you are doing this Coke and Pepsi thing and Mother's Day and Father's Day thing, I want you to think about what relevance that would this have to searching for information about your body of knowledge. Because you're about to do your literature review, aren't you? You're about to start looking for information. And you need to find information. What major events that occur in your body of knowledge that you could start looking at in a particular time frame to find out what information you can get. And I'll show you another stick just now. I think I'm going to make the first step from these and see what it is. Spike. these graphs that you see, these curves and these triggers and spikes and events, they all happen for particular reasons. What you are looking for is unusual spikes that trigger a particular event. We now know from Mother's Day and Father's Day, the event is the day, right? Mother's Day, Father's Day. And if you have to look at Pepsi and Coke and you see suddenly one being lower than the other, and suddenly there's a spike in it. There must have been some kind of change in management at Pepsi, or Pepsi got kicked out of some country, or Pepsi withdrew from some country, or some other event that made everybody want to talk about Pepsi for that particular week. So those are the types of things that you look for. What caused that particular trigger? And this gives you an idea in the timeline from 2004 to now as to what worked for that word called Pepsi, what worked for that word called Coke, and what events in the world happened relative to each other and relative to other events in that particular time frame. So you can see, and the map that you're looking at here shows a coloration of where it was spoken about. Why? Because you probably get more Pepsi in the Russian country and the Asian countries than you do in the Western countries, for instance. I mean, I know when you go to the East, it's very, very easy to get Coke. I mean, to get Pepsi. Not so easy to get Coke, which I found very unusual.
No,
But it's a fact.
that's right.
Okay? So let's try one a little bit more different to see if we can get some. So for the Pepsi and Coke one, I want you to make sure that you understand, firstly, the use of worldwide, and you know the countries, set by countries, and start playing with the past 5 years, the timeline. And then as you go down, you'll find that there's something called related terms. Right? So here's the interesting thing. Sorry, I couldn't help looking at your one. And you saw the word autism there. And if you go down to the related terms, and you've got autism definition, autism day, autism treatment, autism month. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you type your own keyword and keyword search in Google Trends, and you scroll down to the word related, people who search for autism also search for World Autism Day, what is autism, define medical treatment, medical centers for autism. In other words, you are now following the people as opposed to following yourself. If you went to Google search by yourself and you type autism, it is going to give you 379,274,382 searches. And what? Now, how do you filter through those searches to make sense of your body of knowledge? However, if you follow the herd and find out what other people who have searched for your keyword and you search what they search for, then you're kind of getting into a very, very interesting and economic subset of where you want to be. And then you can take that search and go to Google Scholar and now start to look for academic papers on that area. So you can find out which are the words that are emerging in your body of knowledge. Is that making sense? If you were looking for a particular word, if you had to type, why don't you do it then? Type the word autism on the Google toolbar. If you type the word autism on the Google toolbar, you'll probably end up with 340,279,338 searches. I got the number wrong, I'm sorry, I couldn't remember it. Right? So it will give you, and it's a wonderful search, and Google is a fairly exhaustive search, and so it will give you a nice answer. But what do you do with that number now? How do you interrogate those pages and pages and pages of it? If, however, you went to Google Trends and typed the same thing called autism, and you were interested in autism in South Africa, so you clicked on autism, you clicked on worldwide, you changed worldwide to South Africa, and now you got that, and then you refined it to say the last 3 years, or the last 2 years, or the last year, and then you looked at that, and then you go further down, and it will say people who search for autism in the last 3 years also search for World Autism Day, doctors who treat autism, definition of autism, etc., etc. So what is that telling you? That is telling you that people who have been in that space have been working in that area. Your subset becomes the funnel effect, from the big 300 million searches to the maybe 1,000 or 430. And words and people may pop out at you from that, and you might even find somebody 1 block away from your office who has an autistic child who's heavily involved in research in that particular. By the way, one of my colleagues is heavily involved in it, so it's just not just for information. So I'm very interested in education and autism, for instance. There's a repetitive learning and the regressive learning. So you keep teaching, and then they forget, and where do they go back to? And why do they go back to where they go to? And then you teach again. But the nice thing about using e-learning and computerized learning is the computer is patient. It'll do it again and again and again and again. So we think that that the use of online learning or computer-based training or e-learning or whatever word you want to use for teaching with a computer is the perfect fit for an autistic child. Right, so that's a very, very interesting area of research. I'm trying to persuade this lady to do a master's with me on that. Right, so are we getting it? Is it making sense? Are you guys starting to play with it and show each other new things? I just want to give you an opportunity to try your own space bar, yeah? There you go. Let's try this one. Another like almost obvious one. Deceptively obvious. The different. Compare the word taxi with the word Uber. Suppose you would say cab. Hey.
The world and South Africa.
Well, you decide. I mean, it's your machine, your fingers. Go wherever you want to go. It's okay with me. But tell us if you see something interesting. This is what. Where is it? I think on the next slide. Okay. So, which word do you think is dominating in the vocabulary of people right now? In the space of hailing a car. Do you think people talk about the word taxi or people talk about the word Uber?
Uber.
Well, in South Africa, I suppose it will be taxi. Let's be honest, right? But internationally,
Same.
it has to be Uber.
No, well, not the same.
Nationally?
What is the trend category?
Taxi.
Okay. So why is that?
We're talking about taxi.
It's getting closer. I mean, I'm merging, but it's social.
And then there's a spike there. All right. So why don't you do me a favor and look at the few things that I put on the side there.
Oh, US.
So look at it worldwide and customize the thing to USA, for instance, where there's a big debate there. Customize the range.
Excuse me. My maps are not coming up.
Maps.
Cut spikes.
Look, and I said requested map does not exist, so you got to go up. You probably either type the wrong country or you never exactly what you change.
Japan.
But you put Japan, maybe that's right. Put try another tribal word again, click on it. And go back down. You change it to the USA.
Oh, wow. It's South Africa. You're right, Mr. Cullen.
Huh?
You're right about South Africa.
Right, yeah.
Uber's taking over.
Yeah. So you see, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, so this is right there. And why is this happening? So people, you would have some notions about some terms and about some words being more important than other words. Like for instance, I mean, I don't have a prejudice, I just have a very well-informed notion that Manchester United is the best team that ever existed.
And you're right
Right?
about that.
And that's not a prejudice, that's a notion. The other best team is Orlando Pirates. That's an informed academic opinion. All the people who think that Kaiser Chiefs and Liverpool are good are, just dreamers, so that's uninformed, bad research, right? So you get my point, right? So you can use information to merge your prejudices or support your prejudices.
Very interesting. You've actually highlighted an important part of research. These are kinds of phenomena students can investigate.
Mm-hmm.
Why did that happen?
Exactly. So you are looking for the peaks and you are looking for the troughs. The peaks mean that something significant has happened for that day, that period, that week, or whatever. Right? I mean, somebody could have been hit on the head with a Pepsi bottle and passed away, and that could have been a famous person, and Pepsi got all the credit for killing the guy. So it could be something. It could be something as silly as that, or it could be something profound that Pepsi came up with a new product because I think Pepsi owns. Is it KFC? Pepsi owns somebody. Pepsi owns some. Victor, who does Pepsi own? McDonald's or KFC? KFC.
Taco Bell.
Okay, so we know KFC, right? So maybe something big happened in the KFC, and therefore it could spike up for Pepsi because Pepsi is the holding company. So from my point of view, is that just now I'm going to give you a time to go mad and start typing your own keywords, and maybe we can also support you in looking at your keywords and see what you are looking for and see what events spike in, and I'll show you how to download those particular graphs just now so that you can get that. By the way, those maps that you are looking at, those maps that you see, like the one that you're looking at, Richard, that map there, anybody have got maps on this? Like you're looking at the graph, right? The maps are called heat maps. Heat maps simply because it's saying that where are people talking about it. And if you really look at the data well and carefully, you see that not only can you go from worldwide to country, but within a country you can go to province, within a province you can go to city. So let me talk about something that I'm familiar with. Yasin, where are you? Oh, there you go. We were doing that Fees Must Fall heat map, remember? And by the way, that's the other interesting thing about Google, and you don't have to have the hashtag. You don't have to, you just have the search term. Because obviously Google doesn't want to give too much credit to hashtags because that's a Twitter kind of thing. But it's very interesting to see where the fees must fall, where they were spiking or not spiking. I mean, for instance, you would imagine that the time that the library here was burned would generate the most number of events or notifications from the Durban area. Would that be logical? Would that be logical to assume that more people in Durban will be interested about the Howard College Library going down than anyone else? Yes. Have you tested that? You see, it's just a naive assumption that we make. It's not a bad assumption, but it's naive. I mean, Joburg is far bigger than Durban. So if only half the people in Joburg were interested in it, it'll outshine Durban in terms of mentions, right? So and interesting that when that helped find our Durban child, when I was looking at the help, I was really following that particular event because it had a wonderful human story to it and all of that. And if you go there and if you look at Brisbane and you look at Perth, there were heat maps in Perth. People in Australia were following this particular one. Bring Back Our Girls. If you had to in fact, do it. Why don't you do it? Look at Bring Back Our Girls, and you follow from the start of the event to now. You'll see the spikes. The first time the girls were kidnapped. The second time during summer, when some of those girls, well, our summer in December, when some of those girls were released, a few spikes and some of those girls escaped, and then a massive spike a week ago, was it? A week ago when the 80 were released. And you can actually follow the events. Now, what does that do for you? It helps you with your research to work out the timeline of the places that you should be looking for, rather than go to, and if you go to Google, it will give you your answers, but hell man, are you going to search for it? You are going to search for a very long time indeed. So you got this something called a heat map. A heat map points to the relative number of queries that is generated from a particular area, and of course I spoke about the peaks and troughs, right? Google Trends tend to refer to a peak and a trough as a trigger point. Now, the thing that I'm interested in you guys getting into your system is to actually start now, if you can. And let me just see what other example I have. Maybe there'll be something. Okay, so this is the Google Trend. Google, we've done that. Right. So these are some analysis that Yasin was doing on Sunday. Poor child, you're working on Sunday. Right? It's called research, Mother's Day research. Right? So you could find that event, you could look at that. Now, if you go through the so if you had looked at a particular map like you have there, I don't have a pointer, but I'm slightly vertically challenged. So if you look at that arrow on top there, the one that's pointing that way, if you have one of these maps on your screen and if you click on it, see what it does for you? Have you clicked on that people? Okay, can you see that it says save as a CSV file? Right? So now you have a way, when you write your narrative, or if you write something for your blog, or you write something for on your social media page, and you see something happening, and people will say, well, people are finally talking about this, your topic, infertility. And you could actually stop them and say, but hang on, people have been talking about it for a very long time indeed, but they've been talking about infertility as opposed to fertility. As we discovered just now. So sometimes the negative form of the word is what you're searching for, or the positive form, depending on, I don't know whether it's positive or negative, but let's use the word opposite. So sometimes the opposite of the word is what people search for, and then you are searching for the word. So if you go down to people also search for, when I was looking for your one for male fertility, and I went down on Google Trends, it said exactly what you said, male infertility. Right? So people people didn't search for fertility, people search for infertility. Not everybody is an optometrist. You know that optometrists are the only positive medical people in the world because they say what's good about you. So if you're short-sighted, you can see near. Everybody else says you got a headache, even your head is paining, right? But as an optometrist, you got to think the other way. So optometrists are positive people. That you're short-sighted, you can see things close. You're long-sighted, you can see things far. And I suppose that means you can't see things that are close. Am I right? Right. So in your case, in fertility, the positivist will say, Victor is going to give us a big lecture on that just now.
So,
On the theory behind the theory.
Oh,
so the CSV file,
Mm-hmm.
what it
Thank you.
does
Excellent.
is
Right.
it downloads an Excel.
It downloads an Excel CSV file and you open it into Excel and you can import it and you can graph it and do things like that.
Okay.
So it just helps you. It's a trending analysis type of thing. People, as Randy said before he stopped his session, the last thing he reminded you, you got to play with it, right? But it's really, really useful in terms of getting some kind of notion of what people are talking about in your body of knowledge. Okay?
What is English?
Getting it. All right, so would you mind now trying your own search area, your own topic? Right? That's what you gave me at home, so let's be selfish and search on your topic. And please raise your hand if you have any query or question. You don't need to. I'll figure that out. Because I did it. Come with that. So for now, examine the book and then we'll take it. But remember now, you see your search strategy is misleading this. Because you're looking at each in general, and you're looking at a subset here. Maybe you'll be looking at what? I don't know, I'm just asking you. If you know it. You should look at both for now, not to get an idea. Because I mean, you see, if you look at HIV in men, are you looking homosexual? You also looking heterosexual. I don't know. How are you going to tackle it? Interesting subject. You're trying to compare the relative figures of that,
yeah.
You see that might be problematic because, I'll tell you why, because they're two single events. And you're not, yeah, but although they are two massive events, I mean, there will be a lot of media attention. But I don't think it's a little complex. And anyway, Justin, TIS. Now, Justin Believer is a big believer. Yeah, I went to one of those, but the way it's put cognitive science. So those are the kind of big for that particular period. So you're going to do a sub-search of that.
Just
The
sub-search.
You could even take that one and now go to Google results.
And so what was happening on those dots?
So it's giving you a kind of a concept. That's why it's the far away. Okay. That's brilliant topic. Are you studying there? Wonderful. My wife, but she's doing a PhD. She's, I think, BP studies. So she's very interested in No, no, I'll give you. When you see a particular spike and you're investigating that spike or the trough could be that other things, some other thing might have happened, Oscar Peterson or Oscar Pistorius may have happened, and a whole combination of other events that took place in the world that reduced the importance of that particular event over that time. But if you do have a spike, remember I gave you that ridiculous example of somebody assaulting somebody else and killing them with a bottle of Pepsi. I mean, these things happen, right? And then suddenly, Delta Airlines taking out a passenger, Delta Airlines got negative publicity, yes? And suddenly it's there. But, you're looking at Delta Airlines for other reasons. So there are things that go counter-cyclical or counterintuitively or will upset your orderliness in terms of your studies, but the spike is a spike. So, you could even report in your studies and say, look, there's been some instances where you can couch it whichever way you want. You can even put it as a footnote. Right? So, but the important thing of this one is that when something significant happens, you can actually start saying this. Go back to when was HIV discovered? In the 80s, right? So I mean, okay, we can't do that with this particular one. But if you like look for something that happened after 2004, you can actually go to that period in the day when that happened and work out what had happened in terms of that. Bring back our girls. It happened around about lunchtime. So you can actually go there and you see, if you go to that particular week, you will see that there's a straight line, and suddenly the thing just goes up and up and up. So there are a whole lot of searches like that we can do, where you can actually go to the timeline, and you can even test the veracity of it. Nobody can anticipate that bring back our girls is going to happen until it happens.
It goes up and down, and it coincides. All the troughs are July,
Right.
even this, so the big July, December. These are for education. They peak per semester. At the start of each semester. They'll drop at the end of the semester, yes.
So,
Coming from the start of the semester throughout, they peak. At the end, they drop. So this is 1 year cycle, 1 year cycle, 1 year cycle.
and which country were you looking at?
This is worldwide. I can try by country now.
You can try by country and also work at the semester for that particular country, because the US academic calendar is different. So those are the kinds of things gems that you'll pick up that you may not have picked up from Google Scholar and other places. He's working on a very interesting one. He's actually doing a trend analysis for research, but he's doing the hard yards, and he's plotting it through the very hard work. So you study the huddle section. There's nothing there. Okay. On each of those images, you'll see that arrow. So if you click on that image there, you can either choose the word share and share it to some other platform, or you can use it as an embedded thing, and it will give you some code that you can embed into your PowerPoint presentation. Or you can export it into a CSV file and put it into Excel and make the map even better than what you are seeing here. And remember, by the way, remember we said the compare? We said add another term. This gentleman here, I think he added 5 terms to the keyword that he was searching. And then he found an interesting correlation between the academic term and the words. And then there were troughs during the term breaks. And he went up to 5. So, it's 5 maximum. Okay. So, the higher authority people, it's called food, I'm hungry. So, I think all of you who have questions, and it's a journey of self-discovery now, isn't it? So as you discover things, I'm sure there'll be a little group created, an email, WhatsApp group or something, or through the system, we can share the gems and the ideas that you have. Or if you share it with me, I will claim all the credit and tell everybody how smart I am, and we do it that way. So if you find anything exciting or interesting, please let me know so that I can share it with the rest of the class in terms of knowledge that we have. Okay. All right. So I think we'll stop there. Thank you, people.